Welcome to this video, round 5 of the candidates, and this video is about the game Karjakin against Mamedyarov. Yeah, looking at the tournament situation of both players, they're both on -1. Mamedyarov really started badly, losing 2 games in the early rounds, but bounced back a bit with a win against Karjakin. Good game, good fighting game. Karjakin, on the other hand, has not won a game yet. He lost to Kramnik in an interesting battle, but never got close to winning a game so far. So both players really, they actually need a win somewhere to get back into the race. And well, let's see what happens in this game. Karjakin playing e4. Yeah, he tried one c4 for the first time, as he mentioned yesterday against Topalov, but didn't really get anywhere. So he goes back to his normal opening move, 1e4. He also plays d4 from time to time, but e4 has been his traditional first move. Okay, Mamedyarov plays the Sicilian, and with d6 probably signals his intention to play a knight off, the most popular Sicilian after d6 has been played. Yeah, but Karjakin now goes for bishop b5 check. This has become somewhat of a fashionable line in recent years, and yeah, this I think has multiple reasons. One reason is that I think that black is generally considered to be okay in the main lines, like in the knight off. The other thing is that with Magnus Carlsen being so successful with supposedly non-critical opening lines, just delaying the fight into the middle game, people are sort of looking for lines where they just get a playable position and maybe prepare some little things, some little detail that they can maybe try to get a game with a little bit of something and then go from there. And this is, I think, one reason why bishop b5 check has gained some popularity. It's also a move that very often leads to positions where white is not risking very much, and where he can try something without losing very often. Okay, Mamedyarov plays bishop d7. This is the soundest reply. It's a bit dull, but it's the soundest move. If you want to fight as black, there's knight d7 and knight c6. Well, obviously there are only those 3 moves. I personally have a liking for for knight c6 here, to get some fight with castles and bishop d7 to go. But there's also knight d7 that can be played to just keep the bishops, and keep it a bit more complex. Okay, bishop d7, the soundest move. White captures and plays c4. Yeah, that's the typical way to proceed. White sets up the well-known Maroczy bind with d4, and we get exactly that on the board. So it's a Sicilian type of position. C against d pawn is exchanged, and the main thing here compared to the Maroczy bind in the accelerated dragon is that the light squared bishops are exchanged. You could argue that this favors white, as the light squared bishop, normally on e2, is somewhat of a bad bishop, because light squares, light square pawns. This is true to some extent, but also this exchange is something that is not unwelcome to black as well, because he's got somewhat of a space disadvantage, and very often you have this bishop on c8 and you don't really know where to put it in the Maroczy. So it's sort of a neutral exchange. You cannot say it benefits one player. The point here for white, let's get rid of this color, for white now is to choose a setup. It's not so self-evident how white should develop. Karjakin now castled in a recent game just a couple of days ago. World champion Magnus Carlsen played h3 in this position against Peter Heine Nielsen. strong GM from Denmark and well known for being the former chief second of Vichy Arnott, and now he's one of the trainers and seconds of Carlsen. So Carlsen was playing against his training partner. They had this in a rapid tournament in Brazil, and it was quite interesting. I will show you how this game went a bit later, because it's more interesting to see some other idea first to make a comparison. Karjakin played castles, Mamedyarov as well. Yeah, and here now Karjakin played b3. If he would have played h3, we would have transposed to the Carlsen-Nielsen game. Just another move order. What is important here, that the old move, the traditional move f3, a move that, for example, I have played myself on in some games. At one point in my chess endeavors, I actually played e4 regularly and went for this bishop b5 check, because I didn't really want a mainline knight off. And I always enjoyed the Maroczy bind structure because you have a nice space advantage. Yeah, and this was always thought to be slightly more comfortable for white until Ivanchuk introduced this remarkable idea, rook c8, attacking this pawn, b3, and now in 2003 he played the amazing move d5, which is just very remarkable. A breakthrough on the point where white has concentrated all his forces, and the amazing point is, if let's start with the easy things. If white takes here, yeah, black just wins the piece, of course. If white takes with the knight, there's the move e6. And what is white's move now? The problem is, if you retreat here, going to take on e4 and just win the house. This is all hanging with check. The whole diagonal here is a disaster. Black just wins. So cannot take with the knight. But what about pawn takes? Yeah, now we see the point of black's play. You can actually sacrifice a piece here temporarily. Yeah, cd again is just good and easy for black. So knight takes, and what now? Obviously e6. Yeah, black will get the piece back, and it's not even possible for white to get a pawn for it. It's really amazing. Yeah, if you retreat it, you will just lose on the long diagonal, even more material. So the best move here is in fact bishop h6. Quite funny. Yeah, this is the point of it. So black will just recapture here, and now after takes, we will get a position where at best white can count on equality. He does not really have a great move in this position. This is the problem. Black is threatening to take, and if you capture yourself, it's just like, yeah, complete symmetry, but those moves are more of a weakness. They introduce weaknesses on e3 and c3, and black is nicely centralized, so this is even more comfortable for black to some extent. Nothing with which you can win a game, but it's quite okay. Yeah. So what's the point of showing all this? It has a connection to the Carlsen game against Heine Nielsen, where h3 was played, and after rook c8 in this game, Nielsen tried the same idea. The interesting point is now after takes e6, it's pretty comparable, but now bishop h6, takes, white took on d5, queen d5, and knight f3. Yeah, and the big difference in this position is there's a pawn on h3 and not on f3, and this allows white to play knight f3. Okay, you can argue, isn't this dead equal? Yeah, it is not dead equal. It is of course not like white is just winning in brilliant attacking fashion, but there is a dollop of poison into it. Nielsen played rook d8 just to show how easy it can happen to get into trouble. Carlsen exchanged and played rook d1. And now black really must take.
Check.
And now we see that white is just better developed. Knight c6, rook d7. And even this is not like winning for white, but yeah, knowing Carlsen and his technical abilities, he managed to win the game. And yeah, this is a nightmare position against him, I guess. Yeah, rook d8 was really a bad defense. But those little nuances, like h3 instead of f3, they are what makes this variation interesting for white players to find those little ideas that maybe can put some pressure on black. It's not like you will win, as mentioned, in a brilliant mating attack, but you maybe have some little things to play with. Okay, in this game there was b3 played, knight c6, bishop b2, and a6. Yeah, and here there are of course many possibilities. White is not obliged to play like Karjakin now did. He played knight d5. White can also play strengthening moves like rook e1, for example, or rook c1. Wow, that's rook c1. Yeah, okay, rook c1. Sometimes there's this tactic, but okay, white just takes it. Yeah, okay. So white can improve with rook moves, or he can try to alter the structure in the center. In fact, instead of the Karjakin's knight d5, there was a recent game, the German Bundesliga, between Bakro and Anish Giri, where Bakro played knight c6, queen c6. Yeah, if you take with the pawn, you always have to reckon with those pawn moves. This can be a bit annoying, especially considering that white also has this move now. Well, it took with the queen, and then knight d5 was played. I'm showing that because this leads to a very similar type of game than we got in the game. I just think that this move order that Bakro here went for is a bit more precise. At least it looks to me that this is more precise. Yeah, here white is threatening to damage the pawn structure and threatening to take on e7. So black took here on d5, ed, queen c5, and the capture. And this is very similar, as mentioned, to the main game. I only think that this is a bit more, just slightly more comfortable for white compared to the original game. The thing is that after rook e1, there is a tempo here, and white has little things going for him. If he plays queen d2 and rook c1, which he did in the game, there is the b4 idea, using the tempo on the queen, and there's always checks here to win an important tempo, and this is not possible in the main game. I think this is a bit more precise, at least my superficial impression. Bakro actually won a nice game here, but I don't want to show the whole game within this analysis. Okay, knight d5 was played, and we see that the structure is identical to what I just shown, but now the queen is on d7, and I think it's actually better on d7 as it defends here and it prepares a quick b5. In fact, b5 is of course what Mamedyarov played here. We have a very basic pawn structure now that quite often pops up in the Sicilian, especially in the Maroczy bind. e7 of course is a cause of concern for black. White will pile up on this pawn, and this is somewhat annoying pressure. The thing is though, we have quite a number of pieces exchanged already that favors black. It's helpful to have some exchanges already done if you are in this kind of situation where you have less space than the opponent. And black here rather quickly has gained counterplay on the queen side. We'll see that after rook e1, and we can put those moves on the board. Yeah, h5, this is typical. h4 is threatening h5, and black just blocks this possibility. We see that black has counterplay against the c4 pawn, and therefore it's not so easy for white to make any substantial progress. He played very natural moves now, Karjakin, rook e4, yeah, doubling on the e file, and black doubled on the c file to get the counterplay. If in this position white now takes on e7, we get this type of position. And in fact, here it is white who needs to be careful, because it's easily imaginable that black can coordinate his rooks to win the pawns, and it can be tricky. Note that in the game in the round before, Karjakin also had queen and pawn against... no, Karjakin had the two rooks actually, in a comparable situation with Topalov, but there the rooks couldn't really coordinate, which I think is possible here. Rook e7 is simply not helping white at all. He played queen to b6, attacking this a pawn. Yeah, and I think now Mamedyarov also could have taken on c4, and it leads to very similar positions to the game. He played a5 first to give away this pawn, and now took on c4. Yeah, it's really not much happening, to be honest. White now, if he does not want to stand worse, needs to take on e7. I mean, this is just better for black already. Those pawns are weak. h4 is hanging, so not helpful at all. You need to take e7, is just the natural way to go. And now Mamedyarov played queen to f5. Yeah, so black has lost a pawn. He's lost the weak e7 pawn. But as a compensation, he has gained some activity. The queen has come out to f5, where it initiates some counterplay, yeah, and also on d5. And the rooks are ready to get even more active on the second rank. In this position, I think black is perfectly fine. And he will always get enough counterplay to trade down to a completely drawn endgame. Very often he will just get the pawn back. Yeah, Karjakin thought for some time, or he tried to do something, but it's... Oops, I'm sorry, this was just too quick. Played queen d2 back, and this basically agrees to the draw. But you don't really have anything great here. White can hardly get any activity going with black being so active. There's also just h4 possibly hanging that you need to be aware of. If white plays something like a4, for example, trying to push the pawn, black will just take it. And it's not clear what white's great compensation is for giving up the pawn. If you play g3 to cover it, there's this move coming. And something like this is not really white playing for an advantage. It's already a bit uncomfortable to play this position. You should draw, of course, with precise play, but it's not playing for a win. Yeah, he went queen d2, and now Mamedyarov played queen to f4. A good move. It agrees to a queen trade, but simply leads to a position where black is so active that he will get the pawn back. He's attacking here, and yeah, of course, attacking the queen. If he would have taken on h4, we need to check that. There is queen h6, yeah, and rook e8 will win for white. So this was one simple thing to not go for. But queen f4 is perfectly okay. White now has a hard time not to exchange queens, and what he did after g3, h4 was hanging, rook f5. Black has this counterplay and will win the pawn. If white tries to keep it, there's also this move first, which provokes white basically, or forces white to play f4 after rook c5. You will get this back anyway. It's just not much happening here. Karjakin went for this.
Check.
And here they agreed to a draw. Yeah, it's completely dead. Black will probably just trade a with this d pawn, and then we have 3 against 3 on one side of the board. Yes, well, this does not have much content, this game. At least I try to do a little bit of a theoretical overview of this line. Maybe if you play this as white, you can use this idea by Carlsen with h3, which seems to be interesting, at least to get a little bit of something. Not a big edge, you cannot expect that, but it's at least far more challenging than this f3 rook c8, which seems to simply equalize for black. Yeah, for both players, the draw is not great, but they're also in a position where they cannot afford an additional loss. What I do think, though, that Karjakin is not, yeah, well, it does not feel like he's yeah. I would expect a bit sharper play, to be honest, to get something, but okay, it's difficult, of course. But knight d5 and all this, it just trades too much pieces, and it's too little simply to win a game. I mean, if you look at this position here exactly, white has many possibilities to keep at least some tension in the position, but knight d5 is just, I think, making it relatively easy for black here to equalize. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the game anyway. There was some additional theoretical information at least. Thanks for watching.